Okay, you're good to go.
Hey, Casey, wait.
And take two.
So after my parents retired, they moved to Eugene, and my mother became very involved with the Wesley Methodist Church on Cal Young Road. And on the way in today, we stopped and saw a bench that's dedicated to her, has a little plaque, it's very cute. And she was a Bible scholar, and that she also gave her Bible library, like over 100 books, to the Methodist Church. And so Eugene was a very special place for her and for myself, but she died 18 years ago. And this first poem is dedicated to her, and it's about a conversation we had many times about the origin of heaven and hell. And the title is Patchwork Heaven, Triple Iris Chain. That was actually a quilt that she made for me. Some suspect they are not stars at all, but devastating holes in the fabric of a seamless universe. Starlight, star bright. Just as the Bible fails to mention hell, heaven may too be an invention of the church. Wish upon a falling star. Only when the sun has set and the moon eclipsed can I dip my ladle into the broth of the Milky Way. First star I've seen tonight, so much so that our belief in a brilliant, distant reality can cast clouds over a locally coveted beauty. Starry, starry night. And maybe there aren't any stars, nor any substantial hell. But then where does all that light come from? I wish I may, I wish I might. Curtain call in the land of Oz. Angels stare from behind the fence. Laser beams through the knotholes illuminating the construction site. Star of wonder. Star of light. So I'm related to my mother. I'm also related to my father. That may explain some of the other poems you're going to hear tonight. But my mother was a risk management officer for a county, so in the government world. And I spent 35 years working for the Legacy Health System, and the last 23 as the compliance officer in the research department, which is a form of risk management. I ran committees that were to make sure that the human research was conducted in an ethical, legal manner. I'm sure I was a difficult person. I retired 3 years ago, so it's safe to go to Legacy again. I'm sure I was a difficult employee because I didn't want to just fulfill my secretarial roles. I wanted to participate. Here's a bit of my participation in the neurosciences. This is called exploding head syndrome. Occurrence. More often than you'd think, commonly first experienced as an on-the-job injury. Incidence, a condition not limited to Northern Europeans, jocks less than nerds, guys more than dolls. Age, over 50, although no group is spared. Stoicism is not just for ancient Greeks. We wrongly deceive ourselves about the children as they too are susceptible to suffering. Diagnosis. Not a headache per se, but a cephalic sensation. First there's a knock at the door, and then an irregular lump of dry flesh sprouting behind the ear. Aura. Patients are often awakened by a loud noise. Shoot me with a gun to put me out of my misery, or stir up another shot of whiskey, no chaser. And then, without warning, it's all over for now. Course. May recur several times per night, and then may remit for a few months. A phone ringing off the hook followed by an interminable dial tone. Treatment. Intermittent alternation of reassurance and harassment. Thank you for your concern and gentle use of the cattle prod. Medical costs forced me to take out a payday loan, joining my fellow cowering sufferers helpless beneath the dining room table, begging you to turn out the light and give us just a few minutes of cleansing darkness. The coughing won't stop until scrambled eggs are violent projectiles flying right out of my nose. I can hear you calling, but I can't call back. Only after I forget it do I finally get it. But of course, my interventions are usually with words. But words can be a form of a virus, come in the form of a virus. So this is called communicable communication. The problem with reading is that it involves thinking. So the true meaning of words may not be apparent to everyone, especially given the fact they evolve like several generations of fruit flies trapped in our mouths, slippery with nuanced saliva, and by the time they reach someone else's ear, they can mutate into a new and unrecognizable species. A spoken language works for approximately 5 centuries, passing across multiple mangled dialects until it is unintelligible, lasting for about as long as the lifespan of a redwood or a sequoia. The mountain on which the trees stand is tough-spirited, strong-willed, and disciplined, while the river valley which passes between its legs is generous with loving concern for all beings, meaning the best things in life are not things at all. I could just as well wash my hands in the bathroom sink of this material world, that billion cubic kilometers of water which covers the earth, molecules divided by the photosynthesis of plants, later reconstituted through the respiration of animals, a cycle completed once every 2 million years or so. When Lord Krishna was a baby, he liked to eat dirt. And once, when his mother tried to take a lump of soil from under his tongue, he playfully let her peek at the entire universe contained inside his mouth. Of course, all modern science, modern medicine, all goes genetic. And this is my version of applying the tools that we have in the DNA kit. This is called Human Phoneme Project. It starts with a quote by Andrew Breton. A monstrous aberration makes people believe that language was born to facilitate their mutual relations. If you say that a single cell of a plant or the stump of an amputated limb has the potentiality of reproducing the whole, when the message is a mess, while an egg with a leg is listed in a catalog of corpses, things are not so clear. But when you talk about amino acid building blocks, twisted strands of communication, substituting phonemes for proteins, crippled freedom, liberating falsehood, intertwined in an act of faith, then I get an idea. A central organ growing backwards into dictionary roots, drawn from hungry oceans of sound, tides suck rivers off tabletops, rupture utterance, frames of acoustic reference facing the open casket, mumbling mass, mouthing mantras, awake at the wake. Scientists join ranks with linguists as graphemes replace fruit flies, twisted helix mutating morphemes, breeding lexicons in test tubes, mosaic of 1-2 letter snapshots, fetal, alphabetic, skeleton, reflection, proto-tongue, not so much spoken as whistled, spit, grunt, barked, snarled, sung, pa, ba, da, ba. And as Stephen mentioned, another one of my hats is being involved in the Bear Deluxe, an environmental arts magazine, and so I do have some poems here that have to do with the environment. Here's a common impulse that we all have. Out of town for the weekend. Under the bridge, a bum moons the passing commuter train. He's already in his office while I'm still on the way there. Friday, we all wear blue jeans as an expression of alleged freedom. Review the agenda, attend the meeting, spend hours writing minutes. At the end of a long work week, I head for the hills along with countless throngs evacuating this hellhole until most traffic comes to a standstill for a fatal accident. Recently deceased motorists are swept away without ceremony. Meanwhile, some impatient drivers unwilling to wait for the broom careen recklessly through shattered glass and twisted metal. Undeterred pursuit of spiritual renewal among the holy trees along the sacred lake, straddling jet skis and dirt bikes. The S-shaped vein on my temple takes 4 or 5 turns down until it dives, a river that goosenecks into the mountains and onto the plains. There are no boulders or rocks in that part of the country because the last glacier ground them all down into grains of sand. And as the editor of the Bear Deluxe, I have proposed to the editorial board several times that we should have a hiking column that led the readers to all the Superfund sites in the Northwest. I always think William Sullivan should write it, but this is my attempt to start that tradition. Short hike through the McCormick and Baxter Superfund site. Down from the Portway Tavern, meandering Edgewater Avenue, ignore warning signs, do not enter, danger, danger, danger. Beyond barbed wire, around locked gate, overstuffed chair suffocates under ivy. At the base of an oak-shaded hillside, line of dead elms define the water line. Patches of dead grass poking out of an abandoned parking lot. Dwarf maples stagger along railroad tracks. Creosote grave bubbling over half-century of telephone poles now entombed by a bentonite slurry mix designed to suck up pentachlorophenol, while arsenic, chromium, and zinc continue to slip between chemical scrubbing fingers. First identified decades ago, children in a waterhole burned by caustic acids. Today, a lone jogger quickly disappears down dusty trails. Yard service illicitly dumps lawn debris. Well-concealed tent city along the polluted river, hollow-eyed men with yellow dogs fishing the old Mormon slough. Outside a graffiti-infested factory, rusted 55-gallon barrel in the ditch, cradling a blue heron nest. Rookery abandoned by the trees. But I have confidence that nature will win, men will lose. We're just not there yet. This is called Law of Large Numbers. There are more captive tigers pacing suburban backyards of Texas than exist in the wilds of Sumatra and Siberia. There are more people on the planet today than have ever been buried beneath the earth. Not enough marble left for headstones, much less elbow room for other species. Fortunately, the number of bacteria in the gut is greater than the number of cells in our bodies, ensuring a biblical return to dust, to silk, and water. In the meantime, there's some settling up to do. We're going to get knocked off the top of the line here. This is just one way it could happen. This is called food chain demotion. After a season of natural man-made disasters, mercury slowly spreads across the sidewalk, and the grapefruit becomes surly when whiskey panic brings it all back upon us. Discovery of fried liver in the ice cream, St. Vitus dancing, and a loaf of bread drives the occupying army to burn bumper crops, so that now I must trim the side yard just to serve a proper dinner salad. Fallen from the cup slip, reduced to dumpster diving for dregs, only to find rabid rabbit ears popping up on the periphery, surfacing from underground bunkers, powerful hind limbs twitching, creepy buck teeth slicing, dicing, ready to fight to the death over lawn clippings. My new rival has stepped right up to the dinner plate. Reduced to mud wrestling with a fluffy cottontail, oozing bunny fever, survival of the fittest, hungry, determined, and not without skills. But can we live with other species? I mean, it is possible, but sometimes seems quite rare. This is called skinny dipping in Memaloose Lake. This is up by Bagby Hot Springs. Down forest roads and past a series of savage clear cuts. Trailhead at the end of an empty parking lot just beyond the stumps. Climbing up a ravine spared by loggers, thick with old growth, to a cascade teardrop framed by dug fir, bear grass, and rhododendrons. Sweltering day demanded that we shed our clothes, wade through muck from the last ice age, then paddle into that clear and dark pool miles from the gridlock of a livable urbanity beyond the erosive reach of a four-wheel drive. Not so far out into the 5-acre pond, we were greeted by a herd of newts, aquatic salamanders, green, brown amphibians raising their heads above the surface in synchrony, miniature dragons ready to breathe fire, somewhere beyond an evolutionary hierarchy or Darwinian phylogenetic scale. We soon established an equality of animal flesh, joining in a prayer circle, mere at the base of South Fork Mountain, treading water, nose to snout, with our brothers, ourselves. But the real point is that we can hardly get along with each other, much less other species. And this is the problem that we have to solve first. It's called watching the television, watch back. NASCAR sponsored by the NRA. Car crash into the stands as spectators defend themselves, dashboard riddled with bullets, only to find backseat teenagers copulating in sheets soiled by blood and oil in need of a morning after pill or a clothes hanger abortion. A laugh from the living room makes me imagine a long line of relatives bringing timeless drama to their lives, offering an apple to a snake, searching for narrative structure, modern lives based on biblical stories, repeated endlessly over the nightly news. Too old to remember, too familiar to forget, stone path in the garden, hiding footprints, same story on every station, every day, tucked between seductive advertisements. Flat screen reflection of my own image, picking up pieces of a broken economy, got a bad case of the Trotskys, 10 days that shook my world, mistakenly burned the American flag when intending to only char broil. Turned the video camera around like an owl's eye, searching for mice. Keep an eye on what's coming from behind. More marshmallows for the munchkins. The new world is growing old. The restaurant at the top of the Eiffel Tower proved too heavy for that structure, so it was auctioned off, shipped piece by piece to New York City, and reassembled in order to entertain a view of another French architectural creation. The true precedent was set when London Bridge deserted the Thames and retired to Arizona. The future holds something for everybody. Negotiations are presently underway to welcome Rome's Colosseum into the eye of the Pentagon. And wait till it happens. I told you so. But occasionally, irony is not enough. I mean, I think this is where, we find some comfort with The Daily Show, but at some point we have to look reality in the face. And this poem comes from a trip that Jane and I took 3 years ago. We drove across the country, and it's a big country, and that's a good thing, and that's a bad thing. Yeah, but somewhere in the middle of the country, at some points, you can see from one side of it, from the Pacific to the Atlantic, and things become quite clear. And I had this experience. This is called Memorial Day at the Little Bighorn. At the edge of the Great Plains, beneath a big western sky, just off I-90, halfway between Billings and Gillette, through a toll booth up from the casino, Crow Casino, rest stop without picnic tables, gift shop run by Boy Scouts, public dress system announces the next lecture in 15 minutes. Solemn menfolk holding the hands of their wives and children, mostly grizzled white guys, but also a few Lakotas sporting gray ponytails. Every truck in the parking lot with bumper stickers supporting the troops. Behind the visitor center on a covered patio overlooking Last Stand Hill, an overly enthusiastic ranger dressed in green camo relives the massacre. How could such a well-armed cavalry be overrun by heathen savages? Only military cemetery in the world with tombstones placed to mark where each soldier fell. Rounded marble monuments lie scattered down the treeless hillside, dry coulee, once awash with red blood, today covered by yellow grass, filled with buzzing locusts. Signs caution tourists, beware of snakes. Stay on paved pathways to prevent further erosion. Use of metal detectors prohibited in search of battlefield artifacts. Sue in the audience asked, "And so where are the dead warriors?" Our guide points to the far side of the road, a stone circle 6 feet deep, topped by a iron sculpture depicting warriors on horseback, inscribed with a list of names and culturally sensitive 21st century narrative etched into marble about the clash of nations, Europeans thirsting for gold and manifest destiny, nomads striving for an existence not burdened by the ownership of land. Just imagine Custer's surprise, our host continues, gesturing to the river below, when he came upon a city of teepees under the cottonwoods, Cheyenne and Oglala, Sans Arc and the Brule, Blackfeet and Umpapa, not just Custer's last stand, but also that of Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. Just imagine burial sites for those first people who died in revenge, from Big Hole to Buffalo Gap, from Stronghold to Wounded Knee, a genocide that could not be contained by this entire valley. Back in the parking lot, I noticed yet another more substantial graveyard, occupying an irrigated green lawn set below a line of pines, filled with white granite squares and neat columns and rows, evenly spaced so that a mower could be driven between. National cemetery designed for an additional legion of patriotic souls. Children of Montana who served their country overseas in Japan, in Germany, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, driven into frenzied murder by rallying cries echoing the memories of the Alamo and Custer, the Maine, and Lithuania, Pearl Harbor, and the World Trade Center. And it was then that I imagined, just beyond those unmarked burials for Native Americans suggested by the uniformed storyteller, yet another invisible martyr's boneyard, extending all the way to the Continental Divide, filled with victims of wars fought throughout Asia and Europe, a necropolis so vast and endless that everyone on this earth are either dead victims or living witness, pushing up dandelions or placing flowered wreaths, without time enough to wait until the next sun rises, without lifetimes to spare until a blue moon falls out of the sky, without the patience to pause until pale faces and red skin are the same color, as this life is too short and precious, and there are more important things to celebrate than the crusades of brave warriors and noble soldiers. Oh yeah, let me get a little more upbeat about life, because if we look at reality too much, we could get depressed. So let me predict, in the not too distant future, we're going to see the return of the Vikings. It will be a singular morning on the fjord when ruthless pirates renege on their vile oaths, horned helmets discarded in favor of a kerchief or beret, giving up rape and pillage for touch football and picnics. It will be a joyous day when the Norsemen come home without their loot-filled boats and head-splitting axes, exchanging chainmail for denim and corduroy, barbecue chicken, and broccoli fronds draped over the grill. And you can quote me when that happens also. So, I do consider myself an optimist, and I do feel that it is partially the role of the poet to inspire the spirit, as difficult as that may be, and thankless. And I want you just to consider my poetry reading to be some form of entertainment. And this is called Scat Singing on the Poop Deck. The flavors that meander down the center of my tongue lead to a trail through the pasture and into the woods. If I could taste fear in this roast beef sandwich, sacred cows must have sensed the hammer coming down. Fireflies catapult towards celestial bodies. Thoughts dance in the space between words. If you're asleep, I'm an insomniac watching movies. If you're awake, I'm pacing the hallway with a gun. Engagement ring lost down the drain, washing dishes. Frustrated locksmith pops hinges off the door. Bird tracks to the snow are a mathematical formula designed to turn the entire light spectrum into white noise. Waves in redwood burl cast from the cries of great horned owls, dreams just before dawn remembered throughout the day. My brain wallows in a short-circuiting electric chair that can also serve as a composting chamber pot. Broken fingers caught in an unforgiving cookie jar, poised above this frozen keyboard of misunderstanding. If death was just a divine evil, the gods would not prefer eternity. To pass through this world, the world must pass through you. And let me leave you with a benediction. This is encouragement for you to value your friendships and then to get together with your friends, even though they sometimes might be quite distant. So this is the compass I would like you to use. North of the pole star. If you enter these mountains alone with only compass and a map, let me know. I'll meet you halfway to halfway so we can play craps with calculus. When we reunite beneath the dipper's handle, we will flip the moon's one-sided coin until a red maple leaf in the river floats around that furthest bend. When we rendezvous under the little bear's eye, we will smoke flowers soaked in blood until our cliff-faced trail deteriorates into goat paths and bird nests. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Casey. Let's give Casey Bush another hand. You know, it's so wonderful that not only are Casey and Leanne both great poets, but that they were willing to come all the way down from Portland to be with us today. We really appreciate that. So glad to have you both here.